Hey, your girl is back again. I am back again, honey, back again. So I was just finished a really great conversation with my girl Tina, Tina Williams, who is that's a bad girl. And what I've learned is get people in their area of specialty. That's how you build a championship team. You don't want a bunch of generalists on the team where everybody is maybe good at a little bit of everything. You really want people who are really intentional about like really getting into some serious mastery. In other words, they're drinking it, they're sleeping it, they're reading about it, they're, listening to podcasts, they're, on YouTube videos. They are really doing what I call deep dives. They take deep dives into the area of specialty, which brings about mastery. And that's what you want. You want people that are deep divers in specialty areas because that is how mastery comes. And mastery always brings social impact and then also financial impact. It's really hard to become an impact player if you're all over the place. You're probably not going to see Steph Curry at, a communications conference, but you will probably see him at sports events, physical therapy events, physical performance events, maybe mental performance events. You're going to see him in his specialized area because he's looking to not just I was good, but to stay good. And we see that, a lot in sports, like LeBron, he gets a lot of heat, but he's just become a master of what he does. And so I want to encourage you all kind of have that same line of thinking that whatever you feel like you have really been called to, give yourself permission to obsess over it. Give yourself permission to keep learning about it, to keep showing up at the conferences, to keep showing up for yourself. Like that obsession is what's really going to bring about mastery. And this woman, I see she just came on. Yay. So I'm about to bring her on. But this woman that I have on today, I have a tremendous amount of respect for because since I've known her, I've always thought about her and I've thought about social impact, financial impact, and being a woman of color. She wasn't like over here, over there. She kind of put those glasses on years ago and has just kept them on and continued to grow and evolve and keep herself in spaces where she can learn and mentor at the same time. And I think that's what I love about her. And I love about people that are very successful. They're specialists in their areas. And the reality is anybody can become a specialist. You just got to be willing to do the work. You got to be willing to show up for yourself. You got to be willing to practice. You got to be willing to read. You got to be willing to do all those things. That becomes really, really important. And so I'm going to go ahead and bring her on, Miss Bowers. We call her Miss B. Hey, Garland, I sent you a text. Send me that. Hey, everybody that's on here today. We call her Miss B, Miss Geraldine Bowers. She's made tremendous impact in the city of Detroit and really the nation at large. So, Miss B, let's go ahead and jump right on into it. I know you've been in real estate a long time. First of all, how did you even get in real estate?
Actually, I was a school teacher. And as a result of having a summer off from school due to a pregnancy, I decided to find something that I could do. And I decided to sell real estate. Well, by coincidence, I was extremely successful at that particular endeavor. And by the time school was ready to start again, I had to make that terrible call to my principal saying that even though you had a substitute in my position all this time, I'm not coming back. One of the toughest calls I ever had to make because I love teaching. So I got into real estate and then shortly thereafter opened up my own company. And when I did that, I decided that I wanted to have a different approach to selling real estate. I started out in a period where here's a desk, here's your phone, you're on your own. Training was totally absent. So I immediately started writing manuals and started teaching real estate just like I taught school. I was a special ed teacher. I teach my students today. I tell my salesmen, you know I'm special ed, so that's why I get along so well with you. And they laugh. But that's how I got into the business. And by being successful at it, I was able to do kind of a higher end client because you mirror, it's kind of mirror image type of thing. Your audience tends to be your center of influence. So I was doing high end real estate in the Detroit area. And we specialized in servicing our clientele and got a very good reputation for being thorough, on point, knowing the laws, not getting people into trouble, making sure that our contracts were well done. The agents knew what they were doing. And we massed a large real estate company, and that was the beginning. And the market at that time, Detroit was one of the first real home ownership destinations. We had 44% Black home ownership in the city of Detroit. This is early on, and we did not have any kind of promotion of that nationwide, but it was a real consequential issue because we had home ownership when most of the country was still, doing rental properties, where we had this large percentage of home ownership. And a lot of economic factors took place. There was a lot of reconstruction going on. A lot of people were having their homes taken. You hear people talk about Black Bottom. Those areas were being consumed and moved into the urban Detroit area. We took advantage of that because people were getting $15,000 for their relocation grant, as well as whatever the priority of the property was. And most of those properties were like $50,000. So I had customers coming in with $75,000. Simultaneously, the real estate industry was opening up. At one time, the National Association of Realtors did not accept Black members. And we would have to go to these real estate companies in these areas of Detroit, these desirable areas of Detroit, and ask them, would they let us show our customer a piece of property in that neighborhood? And they would tell us, well, call us in a few weeks. If we haven't sold it, we'll let you know. That was the put up. Well,
was this like the 60s? Was this like the 60s?
The 60s and the early 70s. The Justice Department came to us, and along with 3 other realtors. And they said, listen, we want you to apply to the multiple listing. Because once you became a member of the multiple listing, they were bound by the Realtor Code to share the information with you. So that opened that door. We did apply. It was $2,500, and that was a lot of money back in those days. But we all applied, all 4 of us, and they literally vetted us like we were specimens. We had to go to meetings and let them ask us questions, and none of the normal procedures. I'll never forget, there was a gentleman who stood up and said, over my dead body. And he was to me, he looked like he was 7 feet tall, and he had a mass of white hair like I have now. And all I thought about, it's time to leave. But we got in. And when we got in, we took our buyers wherever they wanted to go. So those closed communities that had been really inaccessible became open. And that's when our percentage of home ownership went up. Customers flocked through the doors because they had their relocation funds. And that was the beginning of Southfield, which is a suburb. We took people to wherever they wanted to go. If you wanted to go to Ann Arbor, we went to Ann Arbor.
Wow. Quick question. You got really good in real estate. I want to backtrack a minute. You got really good in real estate, and this was, I'm assuming, in the 60s or so, maybe early 60s when you first got involved. But then you said you got so good, you said, I want to open up my own. I mean, it wasn't really common to see women of color in particularly say, I'm going to be my own boss. I'm just curious, where did you get that mindset?
That's an excellent question. Probably our family moved from South Carolina to the Detroit area, and I lived in a downriver neighborhood. And we just, I was telling TJ the other day, my grandson, who's our vice president, and I was telling him the other day that we started churches in our little community. First, you had the basement of the church, and there was a sanctuary in the basement, and gradually you built the church up. And I remember our church sold dinners and sold candy and did everything, but we built that church. And to this day, Mount Zion Baptist in Ecorse is one of the largest churches, but we built that church. And people can do anything they want to do if they see enough benefit to it.
Did did did, did your parents put that in you, or was it you being in Detroit, seeing other Black people? Because at that point, I'm thinking Detroit, you saw probably more progressive people of color than you would in other parts of the country, especially the South.
Yes, I think we were. I think I was raised entrepreneurial. I can remember my grandfather sending big bushel boxes of peanuts, and my sisters and I would actually take those peanuts and put them in little bags, and my father would take them into the factory and sell them. So I think it was just from familial. My grandfather had his own farm. As a matter of fact, I remember he had two sharecroppers, and he owned his farm. And so there were many times we would go to visit. We'd go like twice a year, and I really now know that my father's visits were simultaneously with the harvesting time. So he would be there to assist his father in harvesting, and that was not a coincidence. I can remember the best job, the best task to have, and was the watermelons, because as I got older and as a teenager, best job, because you wait up. The guys take these machetes and break the watermelon, and then they toss it up to the person on the wagon. Well, let me give you a real treat. If you're on the wagon, you stand there and you catch and stack, catch and stack, catch and stack. Guess what that does for your waistline, girl? So that was your waistline is 22 by the time you get home. So,
Yeah, right.
I think it was entrepreneurial. I can remember going with my grandfather to the cotton gin and selling the cotton, and so that I guess those exposures was
Yeah. So,
contributing.
okay, Black people in the city of Detroit in the 60s, 50s, obviously it was civil rights. You and my parents both, blazing trails. I'm not born yet, but it always intrigues me. Do you feel like Detroit had the greatest probably population of people of color coming together and wanting to really become entrepreneurs?
No question. They we would have these group meetings where these entrepreneurs would get together and talk about what we could do. And not looking back in retrospect, that was the impetus to start our businesses, grow our businesses, support one another's businesses. And your parents, I can remember vividly your father being a part of some of those meetings. We would meet in homes, we would meet every place we could, but we would share information about opportunities. And it's similar to like it is now, only it was designed not to work, because people would talk to you about opportunities for financing, but it never happened. We had to finance our own businesses, and there was no support from the government, or SBA came along later, but we were trying to get together to support one another, and we did. We
Yeah.
absolutely did.
Yeah. So question, would like the wealth gap is definitely way better than what it was, right? What are your concerns where maybe people of color are concerned? And caught myself moving out of the sun, but move to another part of the backyard. Still a lot of sun. Let me move over here. What are some of your concerns with maybe some of the things that where people of color are concerned? I guess is my question to you, being a legend like you are and a mentor for me. What are some of the concerns that we need to look out for, and particularly in the area of real estate? Yeah, what are your concerns there?
We need to control to some extent the access to funding and finance. Even now, Detroit is honestly, I'm going to use a colloquialism, but Detroit is on fire. And everybody's looking at Detroit as financial opportunities. But we're still in line to majority lenders and limited to the amount of our marketing they do in our community. It may be wonderful to have a $25,000 grant, but you're going to have to take it to them. It can become the best kept secret. Um, Bank of America is giving $10,000 as an outright grant, but you have to find those ads. You have to seek those sources. We're having coming up in a couple of weeks. We're having Saturday brunch with Bowers Realty, just to list all of the different sources for grants that are available. I was excited to hear that if Kamala wins, she's going to try to use this program for outright grants. But if it's great to have a grant, but the message has to get to the audience. And the city of Detroit has a restriction that the property has to be purchased in Detroit. Well, most of the banks don't have those restrictions, and you should be able to live wherever you want to live if you want to use financing that's promoted as a result of the government activities. So it's there's a lot that has to be done, and mostly we need access, and access is still our job. When I say our job, it's my job, your job, because you're doing that right now. Because people are going to hang up after watching the presentation and say, well, where are these grants? How much are they? I mean, who qualifies? And we have to go into the community and make sure the message gets there, because nobody else is going to do it.
Yeah, that's good. You were big too on, I mean, of course, because rent is bullish. It's going to always go up. So I think one of the best things we can do is put ourselves in a position of home ownership, put our children in a position of home ownership, and then also become investors. Because to your point, Detroit is on fire. We have a lot of people coming from Holland and Australia and all over the world to invest. I want to make sure the people that look like Miss B and people that look like me are aggressive about not just owning your home, but then also become an investor. Will you talk a little bit about that?
Well, I think that's very much applicable, but we still have that same handicap. When you get ready to buy an apartment building, or I get ready to buy an apartment building, I have to seek financing. I have the same obstacle. The equity position, none of the rules apply when it comes to us. We are tapped on the shoulder, but wait a minute, where do you have the experience? How many units have you managed? Where, and if it's in the city, if it's in an urban area, where are the comparables that support the amount of debt that you need to originate? This recent increase in rents, I believe, has occurred. It was overnight. The average rent in Detroit was $750, $800. I mean, in 60 days, it was $1,200. And it looks like it's still going up. But that was because people couldn't borrow money. Now that we look attractive,
yeah,
as a resource, these banks are having to apply those same old rules. in making the financing. So they needed comparables. So now that the rent is $1,200 and $1,500, we're going to see apartments being built as well as trading between investors, because now they can justify the bank's loan because the rents are higher. And that has happened in the last 12 months. Rents have literally tripled. Forget about it. I mean, it was 700. Now it's 1,200, 1,300, 1,500. And it's exciting to see because it's going to help you to get financing to make investments.
Yeah.
And hopefully we'll be able to attract some minority ownership also. And hopefully we'll be able to build something from the ground up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Instead,
Yeah.
instead of relying upon somebody else's worn out goods.
Yeah.
We can
Yeah.
do that.
We can do it. We can do it. I gotta
Really do it. And that will be something I've never seen. I want to stay around long enough to see you guys build things.
Yeah, no, that's really good. You've made a lot of. I'm thinking about one of your mentees who was done over 100 million in real estate. And I'm going to wrap with this question because I know you got a busy day ahead of you. He did over 100 million in real estate in the city of Detroit. One of your mentees that he gives you a lot of credit every time he speaks, which I think is amazing. When he said 100 million, I'm like, yeah, I got next, bro. I'm working on that right now. But what were some of the main things that you think that you taught him that helped him to get to the point where he's built over $100 million portfolio?
All I gave him was he has a wonderful story. If you got a minute, he has a wonderful story. He was, I think, 19 or 20. And he would come by the office and he had this bucket and these shamus cloths. I don't know if they make that anymore, and he was washing cars. And he would tell me, you got to have your car washed because it's got dust on it. And your car shouldn't have any dust on it. So, but you did it yesterday. That's okay. It's still got dust on it. It's time to do it again. So one day he came through and he had a wonderful personality. He could sell me on getting my car washed and it wasn't dirty. He had a good personality. So I told him, I'm going to give you a scholarship to a real estate school. And I want you to go take this scholarship. And when you pass, I want you to come back and I'm going to put you into real estate. So you can start getting your gifts rewarded. And he did just that. And I think the reason that they did so well was because I raised their level of aspiration. He tells this story, and I don't remember now. This now may not be true. He tells me that I told him to go out and get a listing every day. And he said he did that for the first 19 days. And after he had 19 listings, he said, well, do I have to I have to take off or something. I need to take off a day. And he says, I told him, no, you can't take off a day. You finished the 30 days. But he's hilarious. And that's the absolute truth. He would go out every day and he would come back with a listing. And that gift, because I think that he who controls the goal makes the rules. And if you have listings in your inventory, then you're going to have sales. Instead of the principle that I sell John Doe's listings and he feels he's doing me a favor. And he has control of that process. So he embraced that and he became top lister in our office and he enjoyed a really successful period of time. And that I had two really top guys. There's another one you have to meet. His name is Ron Simpson. And you're talking about Herb Strother. And this is the secret of the real estate business. They became fast friends and left together. They became my two top listers and they left together. So you have to keep rebuilding in your own image. So I was a lister and I kept retraining and training and training. So I always had listings, still do. I believe in, again, that person, that's the cerebral part of the business. You have to learn how to list. And they both learned how to list. That tells you, and you don't have to go to the other guy for inventory, then you maintain a little bit of control in the marketplace. And we always maintain control.
That's good. Okay, this is the last question for real. Women in investing. I've seen a lot of women who wanted to invest and they didn't because their husbands didn't want them to. I am a strong proponent of, and I've been married to my husband. He's amazing, but there have been a lot of investments that I've made that he just didn't want to make. And I always respected his no, but I respected my yes. But I see a lot of women don't give themselves permission. And to me, I'm like, you didn't marry your father, you married a partner. Where certainly I think, he should be able to weigh in on certain things. But when it comes to your business and things like that, like, there's a whole lot that I think it's changing today. I think there are some women who do, but I still see a large percentage of women, even like millennial women, who are like, well, he said he didn't want to learn real estate or he didn't want to invest in real estate. I'm like, but why do you need him to learn it if you want to learn it? Why do you need him to invest if you want to and he doesn't want to? And so I've seen me have a lot of influence on my husband after I've gone and done several things. And then he's like, oh, it looks good. But if I didn't do it, if I would have given him permission to tell me no, like, I don't have permission to tell him no. He's a pilot. He flies his own plane. We live right here at the private airport. I don't give him permission. He's a grown man. That's what he wanted to do. I'm not a pilot. He is. And I see a lot of women who give themselves no because their husbands don't want to. And I think women need to have their own money. I think everybody needs to have their own money because, to your point a minute ago, whoever owns the gold controls it. So to me, it's not an option for me not to have my own independent wealth, family account, but then also her account, so she can make moves without feeling like, she's got to have 5 family meetings before she can do something that's really on her heart. You've seen that. You've lived through a lot of different eras and seen women maybe get the back end of the stick because they did not put themselves in a position to become financially wealthy, independent of their husband. Your view on that?
My view is I'm outspoken on this one. First of all, you're a woman in business. You have to do your homework. Because learning the market, learning about real estate, becoming a student of real estate is critical before you start making investments. Because as the old folks used to say, every tub has to sit on its own bottom. If you buy something, it should not have to be supported by your husband. It should be viable on its own entity. So you must study that marketplace. You must make certain that your financing is in place, what opportunities are available to you, and do all your homework. Now, when you're that kind of woman investor, you don't have to take any wooden nickels, and you'll have lots of approval and support. It's when we want somebody to look at us as a female, but here, show me how to do this. Become a student of the game, a master of the game. And then when you come home with an investment that you want to make and you show the path where it's viable and it's going to return something to the family, you'll have a more cooperative audience. And I think that's how women should approach their investments. Get a little experience and then go for it. Because women are nurturers. In real estate, one of the things about real estate is that it requires management. And women are more amenable to managing things than guys. They kind of want it to just work because I want it to work. The numbers work. It takes more than a number. You have to walk into a foyer of an apartment building and look around and see dirt on the floor and say, no, this does not work. I don't want this. I want to be top of my game and demand it. And there's one of the troubles with real estate is it requires management. And we will accept that responsibility even more, the hands-on management, even though more than our partners. And we can also be a partnership with our partners because you're the one who can walk in and look around and make sure things are going well, maintain contact with tenants, see how everybody's feeling, they have more visibility, and you're underestimated instead of overestimated, which is really smooth because when you can do things and make recommendations or put things in play that nobody else thought about, your property stands head and shoulders up against somebody else's that it's being compared to. And when you get ready to sell it, your investment has appreciated more because you were there with the hands on. I think women belong in the real estate business. It's something we know how to take the pretty pictures. We spend money on cameras and staging, and it has changed the housing industry. It has literally changed the housing industry. You let a woman stage it, or I take that back. I shouldn't say that. I don't mean to be that in lieu of. There's some guys that do really great decorating, wonderful decorating, but we bring this little bit of edge to make it. We call it an aha moment. When a customer walks into the front door and they step into the great room, the living room, wherever, there's an aha moment. At that moment, they say, this is what my friends are going to see when they come to visit me. Well, see, only a woman thinks like that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so good. That's so good. That's so good. And so, Miss B, this has been great. You dropping tea. She's going to be at the Monopoly in Real Life Conference August 31st. September 1st, downtown at the beautiful Renaissance Center. You definitely want to make sure you get your tickets to be there. When you have an opportunity to be around people who have developed mastery and develop other mentees that have built over 100 million real estate portfolio, you better believe that you need to be there to hear that information. Because I know if y'all on this live right now, it's not because you're trying to play small. There's something in you that knows that bigness. There's a giant that's there, and that giant is going to be awakened and ignited at that conference. So get your tickets right now, monopolyconference.com. The information is right there at the bottom. Also, my link is in my bio. And I'm getting ready to go live on Instagram in a few minutes with my other business partner who is actually in the middle of doing a deal right now in the mobile home industry. So listen, there are going to be deals all around. The deals are going to be dealing. You'll have an opportunity to partner with many of us. So get that ticket. Ms. B, thank you so much for taking your time today to jump on here and drop these huge gems, just to kind of remind us where we were, where we are now, and where we're headed. So thank you so much for your time. I appreciate you. And thanks, everybody. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.